Latin and volcanoes. No, it's not my trip to Italy. It's one of the new races in my book. So let's jump in. Well, a very good day to you all. I hope you're all having a wonderful time wherever you are. So today's video is going to cover off one of the races in my new book. Now, admittedly, you don't see a massive amount of this particular race in the book, but it's a precursor to all of the other stuff. So I thought it's prudent to at least go into some detail about it all, and that is to talk about the Frax, Frax. Now, the Frax are probably best described as, if we're thinking about medieval fantasy style, you're probably thinking more like dwarven in stature. So, little people, basically. Now, these guys arrived on the shores of the peninsula where the book is set thousands of years ago, and they tried their level best to set up accommodation and live alongside and integrate themselves into the various other provinces that they found when they first got here. And they were basically shunned, they were turned away, they were outsiders, and they were not really welcome. Now, they sought refuge under a mountain, and everything was going swimmingly until they realized there was something slightly hot about this particular mountain, and they basically came across an inactive volcano. Excessive mining and development of that effectively reignited it. And at the time, the people were understandably in fear of their lives, and it imminently threatened the entire existence of the Fraxan people. And the ruling members of that race basically constructed and used their skills and the technology that they had to protect the people. They basically built impenetrable homes. They built a series of tunnels to allow the volcano, the magma, and the lava to escape out through these shafts and away from the general population, and to ventilate and get rid of a lot of the poisonous gases. They harnessed the power of steam, and they locked everybody away and kept them fed and watered for basically decades in relative safety while they built what they described as a veritable paradise beneath this volcano. When the people emerged, they found just that. They found a living, breathing city, a metropolis almost, that had harnessed the power of steam. Dozens and dozens of years, decades ahead of the other races in the region, that were still very much struggling, even with concepts like steam power, and still using wood and things like that, coal to create fire and to create power. So the people rejoiced. Obviously, this was a wonderful thing, and it had all been possible through the wit and the intelligence and the just the sheer determination of one man. And he became known as the chairman. The chairman was ultimately in charge of the Fraxan people, and he was hailed as a hero to all. Without him, they would not have survived. So the chairman set about creating a perfectly ordered society, because without order, the chaos would have threatened to overwhelm them. The chaos of the volcano, the epitome of chaos itself, uncontrollable, uncontainable in a sense, but he tamed it. And the chairperson and the chairman saved everybody. So he set about creating this society, and what he developed were the first inklings of what we know to this day as a corporate entity. So, where you have certain families which exist in a hierarchy of society, where some families are more powerful and influential than others, um, those families became departments. And certain families would head up different departments: Department of Administration, Department of Security, Department of Trade. And effectively, the society became run as a business. And instead of a board of directors, you had a board of direction, and they oversaw the large scale and high level legislature of the laws that governed Fraxon society. And for a time, things were great. They started to reach out beyond the confines of their underground world, started to make contact with the other species, realized that they could very much manipulate them, control them, use their trade routes and start defining trade routes, use the gold and all of their technical skill to start to control um, and gain influence in the regions. And they quickly established themselves as the race to do business with. And it is through that they also started to extend their political influence. And in fact, there is a book there's a character, in the first book who we meet, who is an elder in the Council of Elders in Traken, in the capital city. And he is a Frax called Vadilum Greyguard, of the Greyguard family. And a very influential person, his father before him. He, in fact, is the one who brought the Amaron to the capital city and used that political influence and the majesty and the mystery surrounding this mythical Amaron and the powers that he had to further his own political career, gaining power, gaining influence, and furthering both his agenda and the agenda of his society, which by now was run by the ruling body, which was simply known as the company. And every company has a chairperson, a chairman, and a board of direction. And the company dictates the entire Fraxon life. What you can do, what you can't do, the rule of law, how to live your life. And doctrine became a way of life. And the Fraxon people have various sayings and mantras to help them achieve loyalty to the company, because it's through loyalty that you achieve promotion. And of course, being promoted means that you and potentially your entire family effectively move up in the world, move up in society. So I very much wanted to, in creating them, I very much wanted to sort of, yes, I liked the idea of the dwarven concept of these creatures who live beneath the surface, are a little shorter, not as much exposure to sunlight. My guys have kind of black eyes, very, very pale skin, very thinning hair, effectively a lack of vitamin D, not much sunlight, and a bit of an aversion to sunlight, but ultimately quite scheming characters, quite devious in some respects. But of course, there are devious, scheming members of all societies, and some they're not all bad. But as someone who's come from a corporate background, I wanted to kind of weave into the story the idea and the concept of what would a corporate body look like in a world that is akin to a medieval times. And obviously those concepts were simply didn't really exist in the current form that we know them now. So once I kind of picked the name of the race, Frax, which actually, as the start of the video hinted, I took from Latin, and you'll see a lot of little references to Latin words that I've kind of played around with throughout all of my books. Frax comes from the word fraxinus, which is ash, which felt quite fitting for the volcanic surroundings in which they found themselves. So the society itself was very much about creating this medieval corporation, the company, departments instead of families. Everything that's administered and run, and is all overseen by this mysterious chairman. So, Vadel and Greyguard is a perfect example of a highly political Frax who is motivated to raise up his people, the profile of his people, and ultimately gain control and power through influencing others, through manipulating others, and the Amaron is the perfect vehicle by which he can do that. So there are other members of his family that we come across. There are administrators in his family, people who are responsible for getting involved in a peace treaty between the barbarians and the Dune in the region, which has been raging for a very, very long time, and there's been an uneasy peace between those two peoples for sort of a decade and a half. And Frax have been sent to try and bring those two implacable foes together in a peace accord that is being forwarded and promoted by the Amaron in the name of all that is good and all that is peaceful. But guess who's in the background? It is, of course, Vadel Greyguard. So you have to wonder what his motivations are and what ultimately his goals are in bringing these two peoples together. They've been promised seats on the Council of Elders, so they have no representation at the moment at the highest level, and that's something that's very enticing to them. But it comes at a cost. At least they hope it does. At least they hope it doesn't. And it's up to Vadel Greyguard to convince them that it's for their own good. So, as per usual, there's all sorts of other things going on in the background, which you find out about as the books go on. But that was effectively a little bit of an intro to the Frax, and we pick up with them, and we actually get to see their city in book 3, and most of the book takes place in the city with Fenn trying his level best to just get by like he always does, and landing himself in hot water like he always does. And we get to explore the company and the chairman and the board of direction and all of that sort of stuff. And that was something I very much enjoyed writing about, and integrating quite a modern world concept into an oldie worldy kind of concept as well. And I also enjoyed playing around with the steam aesthetic, not so much necessarily Victoriana and steampunk, but something quite akin to that. What would they do with steam if they could harness it? How would they power their cities? How would they power their transport? How would you live under a volcano? You'd need fresh air vents, you'd need pumps, you'd need structural support. But there's also an opportunity to hide a lot of things. And this is certainly no different with this book. So, Latin from its name, Frax and volcanoes, nicely plotted out, and all waiting for Fenn to sort of get himself stuck into, and no doubt cause trouble. But anyway, thank you for your attention on this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Just a little taster of things to come a bit later on, but you get your first hints in the first book, The Darkling and the Wasp, which I'm hoping is going to be out in the next few months. So stay tuned for that. Please like, share, and subscribe, as always, and I will see you in the next video.